It's another week and another brand new episode of the Granny Panty Podcast. I'm your host, RubyLynne. You can follow the podcast and find out all the new episodes and what's happening at thegrannypantypodcast.com. If you'd like to follow me, your host, you can go to RubyLynne Links. That's RubyLynnenELINKS.com or RubyLynne.com to see all things Ruby. This week's guest is amazing. She decided to live an authentic life at age 42 and transition. She owned a very, very successful porn company that allowed her to actually live her dreams now. I'm excited to find out about her new website, her new projects. So help me welcome Lucy Hart. Lucy, I'm so excited to have you on the show this week. I have followed your journey a little bit, but just through social media. So I'm excited to hear what your story is today. So thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's always a blast. Yeah.
Yeah. Our mutual friend Lainey was kind enough to reach out to you. So I was excited about that. I had spied you at AVN earlier this year and wanted to say hi, but it was so crazy at AVN and so spread out that I didn't get a chance to make my way over.
Yeah, it was a new venue, made it a blur, but I prefer the spread outness of it, honestly. I thought that was cool. It did less, there was less chance meetings of like bumping it like physically, like, oh, hey, I wanted to meet, but there was more freedom you could kind of strategize more because you could see 400 people at once from 100 yards away and be like, I'm gonna, because we're all there trying to work the room, right? And it's a big room, but you can kind of have a plan there as opposed to like, okay, we're all just like elbow to elbow. So I like it. I like what they did. I like the new thing. It's nice.
Yeah, that was my first AVN, so I had no
Oh,
expectations.
okay. Yeah.
Are you attending any other events?
I will be at the DC Exotica. My friend owns Queer Crush, and we're buddies, and she's just looking for someone to split a booth with her. And I was like, I started a porn site too, nice feeling. So I'll go in on that. So we're doing DC Exotica, and then one other exotic. I can't remember which one. I won't be at the Jersey one because I'm on the board of directors for the Free Speech Coalition. It's the trade association for porn, and we have a board meeting at the same time in LA. So I got to,
Darn.
But which I'm happy to do. It's like I love that work. So
yes.
Yeah.
Such important work. So that leads me into, actually, that was on my questions. Tell me about your work with Free Speech Coalition.
Thanks for asking. So, well, first of all, I myself and most people I think don't know what a trade association is. Like I didn't know until I was on the board of directors. I just knew I heard the expression, right? But what the heck does that do? So, easiest way to explain it is every industry has one or should have one, and that's I'll just use America. In America, that's the government's point of contact to that industry, and liability comes into play. So imagine a diving board association, right? And then at some point, people started hurting themselves on diving boards. So anyone who is a member of the trade association who made diving boards, who was getting sued because people are dying on diving boards, they said, well, we're doing what the trade association says. And then the government's like, yeah, that's the authority of that's trade association. They know they've looked into how to make a diving board, how to do it safely, talk to experts. As long as you're following their protocol, you get sued. It's trade association's fault, not yours. So you can pass it on up to the people and so like when COVID happened in adult film, it happened everywhere, obviously. But I mean, in adult film, we had to figure out how do we do this now? Like, what do we do? Obviously, we have to shut down like the rest of the world, but at what point do we get back to work and what does that look like? And how do we test, before the vaccine and before there was a test, we were like Okay, someone had to make the rules. So that's the Free Speech Coalition, the Trade Association for Porn. And the reason it was on us, there's a lot of really cool organizations for sex work. There's APAC, SWAP, like a lot. They do really cool stuff. But the official trade association recognized by the government is important because one, if people get sued, that actually matters in court. We're the real one, the
Right.
trade association. And then also when the government makes a policy, like a law, they have to hit us up because we're the thing. We write the stuff that ends up in Congress and da da da, like that. So super important stuff. And we had to come up with the rules with COVID. And then other industries were like, wait, we don't know how to do TV shows. We don't know how to do this or that. How's porn doing it? Like what? Okay, so we got to interact with them and that kind of stuff. So we work with other industries like tech,
Mhm.
media, every safety, all that kind of stuff. And we
Right.
also our job is to do our very to come up with policy that keeps people safe and happy and thriving and all that kind of stuff. And there's a few of us members on the board. It's people who like run big businesses or there's a PhD in sexual health, like a
Right.
college professor. What do you call that? Educated, intellectual type. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah, there's some lawyers, there's that kind of stuff, and we just gotta come up with what do we do with this. So currently, we're working on banking discrimination. So like if
That's a big
you have
one.
an OnlyFans period and you want to open a bank account anywhere in America, you have to lie. You have to say they say, "What do you do for work?" When I was a man, they never asked me what I did for work, which I thought was interesting.
Oh,
Because
interesting.
that's the whole and I was like, "Oh, is that what male privilege is?" And it's I guess so, right? Huh, weird when you're like a white guy, you just take it for granted. But then when I transitioned to female, now they ask me what I do for work because I walk in and bounce some titties. You know what I mean? They're like,
Right.
"What do you do for work? Why is this money in this account? Like, why would you have a business? What would you because I'm female now. That's how the world works. So I have
Interesting.
to basically. And if they find out what I really do for work, they freeze my account or they just don't give it to me. And that's the discrimination we're facing. Even though the work I do is completely legal and ethical and there's nothing wrong with it, that's a thing. So we're fighting that and doing okay. We're actually making some ground now. We got some lobbyists fighting on that. The age verification thing, where some people are talking about that, some people aren't. But
Right.
currently, in a bunch of states in America, you have to have like every state's different, but you have to have some kind of a way to make sure anyone under 18 cannot see any in every state it's different nudity, explicit, sexual things. And they haven't defined okay, is a swimwear website or
Right.
swimwear is that's people would jerk off to that. When I was a kid, I jerked to that, right? So are we protecting minors from that? Or is it nipples? Or is it penetration? What is it? Like, if I'm not naked and you're not naked and I tie you up under my stairs and we get sensually close together,
Mhm.
do we need to protect minors from that? And so the Free Speech Clause World Trade Association, we want to help. Obviously, we don't want kids looking at porn, like we're on, right? But we also need to protect the industry and make it safe. So we're the people that have that conversation with government and the different bodies and stuff like that. And we have to talk to pros, like people
Right.
who know about sexual health and child development and this and that, and then
Fascinating.
lawyers, and there's a lot of math involved, and it's a lot. It's not as simple as like it's on the parents. Like
Right.
that's what I said at first. I was like, well, why don't the parents just like raise their kids? But there's a lot at play. It's the internet now. It's all news. So I don't know. That's what we do. We figure out the complicated shit no one else wants to think about. So,
How long have you worked with them?
oh, it's been a few years.
Okay.
I became a board member before the pandemic, kind of right
Okay.
before that. I think that was my first year, maybe
Nice.
2020. And then Became a board member at PASS, which is a separate board, which is related. They're connected, but
Mhm. Mhm.
to- that's complicated 501(c)(3) law, right? But
Right, right.
essentially, PASS is the entity that handles testing. Like,
Right. So I am actually on the health advisory board for PASS. So
oh, you
uh,
are?
I
No shit.
am, and
Okay,
yeah,
cool. How did I not know that?
they haven't actually announced all the board members yet. We've just had one meeting to address the MGen issues.
I was just
And
reading the
so,
email about that. Okay,
yeah.
so you're one of those. They didn't list the names.
No, not yet. I think they're coming out with a press release.
Well, I'm glad you're helping. That's great. That's
Yeah,
great. And yeah, we need help.
fascinating. It's been a good way
Engines.
to meld my formal education in public health and community
Yeah,
education with an emphasis on communicable disease. So it was like this
yeah,
perfect storm. So yeah, I love that.
yeah. Engines complicated to write policy on. It is like I thought I was like, oh, it's obvious, and then I looked more, and I was like,
It's
oh,
it's very complicated
yeah.
condition. Yeah, it's interesting, but
It, if funding goes into testing to where they can have more tests for it, like, oh, you had it, now you don't have it anymore. Or
Mhm.
you have maybe there's a kind that causes the problems that people have.
Right.
And then there's a not a kind that's like no one cares about. Okay, if we can fit, but the I don't think scientists and doctors are going to get funded to care. So I think it's like movies. They're going to be like, look, it's a little blister. Yeah, you can get it from sex, but you can also get it from like rubbing shoulders if it's on your arm. Like, who cares? So they just kind of let it go. Hopefully it's not that because I have a friend who got, it's rare, but
It
now
is.
she's
It's
like,
very rare.
I don't want to work with anyone that doesn't test regularly for MJ.
Right.
Like,
Right.
obviously for her, that makes so much sense. And
And
then,
they're asking everyone in the industry now to get tested before October 1 to kind of create a
yeah,
baseline. So,
we're doing like a one-off, but it's tricky, right? Because we don't have
yeah.
another test that says, okay, you had it, now you don't. So
Yeah.
we kind
It's
of do, but it's not. We haven't figured that out, or we not passed, but like science hasn't like.
yeah, there's a whole bunch of information that just came out, so I don't wanna quote it too much because I don't, you
Okay.
know, I'm more representing the, performer side of it and how, like, new new things are affecting work and that kind of thing, and so
Hmm.
but I do wanna rewind because you said something that fascinated me, and I wanna get your take on it, and you mentioned the male privilege in in your example of banking. So
Yeah.
as a woman who's transitioned, talk to me about your experience since you've transitioned and in different situations like the banking thing. How has that been? And I ask from a place of curiosity because I have a degree in gender and sexualities, and as a
Right.
project, we do, females we dressed as men and in drag and went out in the community, went had coffee, and it was a profound experience for me to see how differently I was treated when I had a little bit of facial hair, and I mean, we went all out. So
Cool.
as someone who has physically transitioned, talk to me about that,
Yeah.
what you've experienced.
Well, I only have enough data for me, right? Like I only
Right,
know my
right.
experience,
Your experience.
and overall, for me, this face, this body, this voice is more powerful and easy to navigate and get what I want, right?
Okay.
And not hurt people and live happy and all that. That's why I did this. I'm like more of a
Mhm.
non-binary type, but I'm really committed to this female Lucy role, you know? So it's easier for me. If we want to get technical, it's a non-binary person in a male body who looked like, and this is a spokesmodel for Playgirl. I looked like man, you know what I mean? I look a strong, hairy chest, big lumbering, you know what I mean? And then I had my twink face where I was like sexy twink boy and all that, and it was working. So I was like, well, I'm going to keep playing this card. It's working, but
Right.
I'm not really a guy. I don't feel like a guy. We didn't have the words for that back in the
Right.
80s, 90s and early 2000s. And then people started coming out as non-binary, and I was like, I Googled it. It's like, what's this NB thing people say? It was like, oh yeah, that's me. Like, so I like tweeted, yeah, I Googled it. I guess I'm non-binary. I don't know. I didn't think it was that big a deal, but I was still going by he, him because for a while, because I was like, it's still working. And then I wasn't comfortable like that anymore, just for me. So it's time if I wanted to be happy and fulfilled and live life to the fullest, I needed to do all this. And so like there's pros and cons to anything in life, right?
Right.
I was physically much stronger. For example, if I have a 50-pound suitcase and I'm traveling with it now, it takes getting underneath it to lift it up. If I need to throw it in the back of a bus or a pickup truck,
Right.
I got to get underneath it. I can still do it, but it's a thing. I got to like,
Mhm.
I can't have a coffee in my hand while I'm doing that, right? When I was Lance Hart, it was all forearm. It was no big, just, no big.
Right.
I was very, not the strongest guy wasn't the rock or anything, but I was pretty.
Yeah.
So that's different, but I wouldn't say it sucks because I mean, it's like different now. When I walked into a room, depending on the room, I don't know, I had that presence of like
Right.
strong male, still white guy, that's what people, and I wore like kind of sexy, basic ass Levi's and like
Mhm.
a tank top most of the time. And I looked like, I don't know, like that, right? Whatever that is. So,
Right.
but more people,
Okay.
more guys would be like, and more women wouldn't really want to talk to me then. And until they got to know me, and then they get to know me, they'd be like, "Oh my God, you're nice. I thought you'd be an like all the time." I would make friends with someone or start dating someone, and they'd be like, "I was positive you're going to be a douchebag, like just positive. You would just be like a total. This is cool. You're like a real person." And I'm like, "Thanks." Like,
That's a backhanded compliment, right?
right, but I get it, right? Like,
Right.
I mean, I didn't at the time. I was like, some guys are nice. I don't understand. Now that I'm in this body and I meet guys, I'm like, yeah, it's not. You shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but when you see
Right.
guys approach you, there's like one. Some guy was talking to me last night, and I was like, this guy either wants to be around me because I'll give him access to more sexual things, or what
Okay.
he wanted. He wanted something from me that I didn't really feel like giving him. He
Right.
didn't really, and he kept saying, "We should be friends. We should be friends." He's trying to get my number, and I was like, I just kind of sidestepped it. And I was like, "Oh man, I gotta go. I could,
Right.
I was trying to be nice." And he struck me as a nice man who meant well. And he probably, if you asked him, "What's your intentions here?" He probably would have really believed. He took a lie detector test. Like, I'm trying to make a new friend. That's all. But I could tell where it was going. I didn't have that problem as a man, right?
Gotcha.
Um,
Yeah. Right.
but because boobs, arguably blonde hair, like the way I walk, ass, all these things, I have so much more power in all of these conversations to where
Okay.
I can say, I don't want to give you a number. And people are like, oh, almost like, I'm sorry I even asked. Oh my God.
Right.
When I was a guy, it'd be like, why not? You know what I mean? Like it was tip. But in a bank, if I walk into a bank, they're going to ask me what I do for work. And if I get into
Right.
in New York where I live, you get into an Uber, they don't want to fucking talk to you. They're talking to their family members on the phone. But in other cities, like in Vegas, you get into a Lyft or an Uber looking like this. They're like, "What do you do for work? Wow, what's your deal? What are you doing in town? Oh my God. Wow, hi, hi, hi." Like that.
Yeah.
And you have to like deal with. I never had that as a guy, you know. So it's just different. But for me, it's so much easier to play these cards, you
Gotcha.
know?
Okay, that's an interesting outlook or
Yeah. When
way to look at it.
another example, I've had I haven't had luckily I haven't had to be in a violent confrontation, like heavily violent. I don't know where you categorize, but anyway, I haven't had to like with a stranger, right? But when I was a man, physically strong, looked tough, for various reasons, I carried a gun. I can still carry a permit and trained a lot, put a lot of work into that. And I was
Mhm.
probably much more physically threatening, you know? And I mean, really, what? Like, I wasn't a jujitsu guy, but I could, like, in a gunfight. I mean, I trained a lot. Like, I was good. Um, and I was deadly, right? But if someone was confronting me, like, hey, and I manned up, hey, what? They wanted to keep going, right?
Right,
They
right.
were like, "What? I got something to prove now, man to man.
Male ego.
Here we go." Now I'm in New York. People steal packages, so that's my like latest confrontation thing. So I go out into my hallway. I see someone stealing a package from me or one of my neighbors, and I've noticed if I'm look dressed like this, which is often just kind of like what I wear, this or pajama pants if I'm at home. I walk out, and if I say, "Hey, what are you doing in my hallway? Is that your package?" And I kind of mom them. They're like, "Oh, I'm sorry. This is a criminal, right? Stealing packages. Like like they're like caught. Like, mom, you know what I mean? Like they shoot me like that."
Mhm.
They compliment something about me every time. They're like, "I love your shoes." I'm wearing like Crocs or something, or like multiple times they're holding a package or they have it shoved down their pants, and I'll pat them down, you know, and they'll be like, oh, "Okay, okay, I thought this was mine," and I'm like, "Your name isn't Lucy,"
Sure.
and they're like, "Your name's Lucy. It's a really pretty name," and then they apologize profusely and they leave. They want to go. They want this
Yeah.
over with. It other times since I've been in New York in this body, I've come outside in a baggy coat. And I've tried the other way where I man voice and I'm just like, "Hey, what are you doing?" Like that, right? And they don't leave. They're like, "What?"
Yeah, the
You know what I mean?
confrontational.
So these tits are much more powerful than the ability to dumbbell press hundreds.
Right,
You
right.
know what I mean? Or the violent training I had done and all that kind of stuff. This is so much more powerful. That's my experience for me.
That's
But that's
interesting.
not everybody plays their specific cards the same way. You
Yeah,
know, everybody's a little
yeah.
different. And fast forward 20 years, I'm not going to look like this. I'm going to look very different, and I have different
Mhm.
cards to play.
Right,
I
right.
also spent 42 years in a male body, growing up with all like the
Speaking
world. Yeah, the world treated me that way, so that's where my
right.
programming is. So it's different for everybody. You know what I mean?
And it's not speaking of which, it's not easy to transition at age 42, I wouldn't surmise. At what age did you realize that you were in the wrong body?
I don't. There's like phases to it.
Mhm.
When I was real little, like a little kid, my best friend, Joanna Brown, what's her name? I hope she's doing great, awesome chick. I used to put on her swimsuit and I
Mhm.
felt more comfortable in that. And then I didn't get in like trouble. I have great parents. They're cool, but they were, they didn't get it. They're obviously back then in the 80s. They're like, "Hey, you shouldn't be," it's like, "Oh, okay." It was so awkward. But I knew something was up then.
Mhm.
Over time, being a kid that like growing up, I played sports, and when it came down to sports time, like bro time on the football field,
Mhm.
I was like, "There's something all these guys are getting out of this that I'm not." Like,
Gotcha.
I don't get that. I don't get what they're getting. And I remember wanting to do like gymnastics or something, like something where there'd be girls. I ended up running track and cross country because it was like there's girls there, even though I was running with, like I knew
Mhm.
something, but I wasn't like, I need to change bodies. I didn't have no one that I knew did that back then, so I didn't know. Then I met a trans woman, and I was like, remember thinking, that's going to be really hard. Like, this is going to be insanely difficult. And everybody tells me I'm like a really attractive man. I don't know. I don't think I would be. I wanted to be attractive. Those are the cards I like to play in life.
Mhm.
And like if you're playing a role playing game and you're like, oh, I have high stealth with this character. I'm going to be a sneaky character. I was like a charismatic, attractive nerd. I was very nerdy and goofy, but that's what worked for me. And I was so scared to lose my primary tools of like, if I don't know if I can do that. And then I started working in porn with a lot of trans women, and I became friends with many. And I knew as we were working, like I would prefer to be them than me. Like I knew that, but I still was convinced, like I'm never going to do that though. Was a coward. I don't know. I was just like, I can't. It doesn't make sense. And then when I would beat around the bush with even with them, they would be like, "You're so hot though, as a guy. Like you can't. What? No." It almost like they didn't want me to.
Right.
And then there's a different time. I mean, early 2000s is different than now. And anyway, and then one day I was 42 years old. I was in a hotel. I didn't have a lot of alone time at this time of my life, and I had some that night. And I was like, do what you do in a hotel. I ordered comfort food. I was like, I'm gonna really jerk off tonight. I'm gonna like really goon and like really have fun. And I was like, I'm gonna shave my legs. I never shaved my legs in my whole life up until then. I wore them clothing sometimes. I wore fishnets under my Levi's often, and like panties and stuff. And the world loved that about Lance Hart. Like it was well received, being like a very masked macho man that also wears fishnets was like an eyeliner. People ate that up. So I was like, okay, what? I didn't think anything of that. And then I shaved my legs and I looked down, and from my perspective, there were feminine legs. And I was like, it broke loose in my soul. And I was like, back from here. Like that was the feeling of like, I don't know where we're going with this, but I can't undo what I just saw. Like I can't. So I started looking into hormones and talking to whoever was in my life. Like, hey, I'm kind of thinking about hormones. And I don't know if I'm going to be like just androgynous or like maybe more femme or like I might just grow my hair out. I don't know. I started there. And then a few weeks later, it was like, I'm thinking about getting laser hair removal on my chest because I think because always had a hairy chest. It was like part of the brand. And then that was a big decision because people around me were like, "But that's like a sexy thing about you. Are you really?" And that was like a turning point. Like, we laser off this chest hair and face hair, and it was hard. I was like, I don't. Here we go. And then once I did that, I was off to the races. I was like, okay, we're getting tits. We're going on full blast hormones. We're gonna figure out how to have hips. And when you transition after mid 20s, the hormones don't grow your pelvic bone out.
Right.
Like there's a range to that. I'm sure everybody's body is different, but general rule of thumb, 25 is about the cutoff, I think. So if you transition before you're 25, you solved a really cool problem where you have a wider pelvic bone than your waist. And cis male has a pelvic bone about the same width as the waist, which changes all the things you wear, changes the way you walk, because that's the hinging point for your legs is your pelvic
Right.
bone. People say hips, but what they're talking about is pelvic bone, right? That's
Right.
the thing. So that was a huge problem for me. Is like, how do I game it? I'm not gonna have a bigger pelvic bone, but how do I make it look in a right way?
Right.
And I had to figure that out. And every doctor I went to was like, "You're 42. Give it up. You can't. You can be femme. You can have tits, but you're not gonna have." I mean, I looked at BBL, looked at all these things, and I ended up getting to where I am now, which with hip implants, hormone stuff, human growth hormone, fitness, diet, a lot of
Mhm.
laser beams to melt away visceral fat.
Right, right.
I went deep into PubMed and NIH medical research shit to like look at studies and brought those into surgeons who are like the best ones in Beverly Hills, and they're like, you can't. And I'm like, well, according to the study, what if it were? Oh, I was desperate, and a few of them started listening to me, and they're like,
That's great. You
I
really
think
did your
yeah,
research.
like if we think we could pull this off, maybe it was a maybe. Like the whole time it was a maybe. Like I honestly did not know if I'd be any kind of attractive as a woman until about 6 months ago. I mean, honestly, this is all new. Like I was like, well, I can get by maybe with Facetune and a lot of makeup and from a certain angle only. But
That's a
now
lot of work, though, to have to do that every time.
a lot of people do. A lot,
Yeah.
and most, I mean, a lot of people do. And I kind of accepted that, okay, in real life, I'm going to look very androgynous and that's it. But then on the internet, maybe I'll be able to play a role of, and I know people who are like highly successful performers
Mhm.
who no one knows that that's not their hair, that's not their face,
Right,
not their
right,
there,
right.
it's not that, and that's cool. Do not knock that. That they should deserve a special award for the extra work they put in. It is
That's true.
like some kind of lifetime achievement award for like you've pulled off this lifetime magic trick of like whole that takes. But I've been very fortunate. I don't have to like. I mean, yeah, I edit my photos like anyone would edit
Well, we all do, right?
photos, but I don't have to like run a filter over my videos that make me look different. I honestly thought I'd have to for a while, but it's kind of cool. I don't have to do that now. So
I like how you leaned into the transition. You kinda just let things fall as they may, I guess you would say,
I
and
wanted to live, honestly.
yeah, and be
I
happy and be
didn't.
authentic.
Yeah, I wasn't. I don't know. I don't honestly. I don't know if I mean, it's a lot of trans people don't make it. Right, is the truth, and I get why. I was in my 40s. I had financially retired. I had built a business that ran itself. It's like the entrepreneur's dream. All I did was run payroll, residual income, making not a millionaire, but I was halfway there many times in life. Like
Mhm.
doing well, no debt, never gonna have kids, so I wasn't worried about that. I just felt like I did life. I did try the marriage thing, all out, full blast. I was like the best husband I could be. It doesn't always work. It is what it is. But I had done life. And I felt done. I would tell my friends, it's like, yeah, if it's like a video game, it's like I beat the game. Now I'm just doing side quests, and I don't know what. Like I tried to get into jujitsu. I tried different hobbies, and I was like, but what about living?
Mhm.
Like I wasn't belly laughing anymore. Like that wasn't happening. I wasn't crying. I wasn't feeling much. I was just
You were
like,
just existing, it sounds like.
existing. And I was like, how much longer can I go this way?
Right.
And I would think often like people, someone would say, well, when you're 80, and I would be like, like that's where I was at. Like I was like, I can't, I'm tired, guys. I don't,
Right.
no, man. Like I hope something happens when I'm like in 10 years. I had, that's what I was thinking. I was like, I got maybe 10 years left of this, and hope some war breaks out and I'll just volunteer or some shit. Like I just couldn't. And I didn't want to end it, but I was like done. I was so done, and so this was my shot at living again.
Mhm. I love
And
that. I
here we
love
are.
that
You know,
story.
I feel alive now. I cried 2 nights ago. Didn't see it coming. I just broke down, ugly face, happy cry. It was joy. It was
Mhm.
actual joy tears
That's amazing.
for like 2 minutes. But I mean, my cat was like. And I was like, I'm so happy. I've fallen in love again, and then polyamorous. So I've fallen like deeply in love with one person, and then I have like crushes, and like
Mhm.
everybody knows it's all in the up and up, and everybody's like, oh, they're cool, and yes,
That's amazing.
having a deep, healthy relationship with a new partner is like awesome, and
That is
all
cool.
kinds of. new friendships that like I thought I was done making new friends.
Right.
I was like, well, I got some friends from way back and we catch up on the phone sometimes, but
Right.
I was going to movie theaters alone and stuff back before I transitioned. Like I don't
Mhm.
have anyone to go to a movie. And it was like people would go because they're on my payroll,
Right.
or they like, and when I was married, they like knew my wife or something. So they'd be
Mhm,
like,
mhm.
yeah. And there's some clout things where like people would go for that, but not like, yeah, I'd love to go see a movie with you and maybe get coffee and talk. Like I didn't have that
That's
anymore.
awesome.
And now it's
That's
back.
cool.
So thank God. So
Tell me about how your adult work has evolved. I know you just started a new website, nicefeelings.com. Tell us
yeah,
about how your work from Lance to Lucy has evolved and what kind of projects do you have going?
sure. So well, it started out as a need. I was that retired person, right? And then I cashed out my 401k, my SEP IRA. I maxed out all my credit cards and spent every penny I had. And I still didn't have enough to do this process, right? Like I was a very, I think I earned that privilege because I was broke before that. Like when I was growing up, like
Mhm.
not growing up, when I was 20s, not doing well, going to bed hungry. So I had to, no one gave it to me, but
Right.
I
You
had
worked
that.
for it.
I worked my ass off to get that, but I burned it all. I burned it all. They didn't burn it down. I spent it all to get part of the way here. And I still needed another like hundreds of thousands of dollars. I was like, and thought I was going to do it with health insurance, but they surprised me. Anyway, I ended up creating a lot of debt, and I had sold my business to Perv Out, the network, and I'm very fortunate. It was worth a very good amount of money, but even with a $700,000 payout,
Yeah.
that just knocked out some of the debt. I was like, "Oh, what are we going to do now? How do we live? Like, what? I have no. Lance is gone. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? That was my main bread and butter. My sites that I got to run themselves, I sold them. So I was like, my resume is like empty for the past 15 years because I've just been working in porn, running porn businesses. I was like, maybe some tech company would hire, but I feel like I'm lying. I don't know. I don't think I can do that. So I had to rebuild everything. And I went, at first, my friends were like, don't start another site. Like, everybody just does OnlyFans now. Just do that, do some escort, and you'll be fine. And tried that, and it takes years to build up. Now, OnlyFans is highly competitive, and escorting is incredibly competitive. Now that every soccer mom that's cute had an OnlyFans, they're
Right.
a good percentage of them have convinced their husbands, look, I could really make some money if we put an ad on like Trist or Arrow, and there's people. So it's taken time to do it healthy, like to weed through clients. And anywho, I went back to what I knew. I was like, well, I know how to make pay sites. That's one thing in life I have figured out, like affiliate marketing, pay sites, email blasts, district content distribution. Like these are things that very few people know, and I've done the work to figure out. I
Mhm.
don't know if it still works in today's time, but I'm gonna find out because I just launched it all. So the actual content, I didn't want to do anything that I wanted to that would basically traumatize anyone ever. Like I was like, I'm not doing that. And any job I've had before porn, there's trauma, right? Like there's always anytime you're every office I worked at, every not factory, but worked on warehouses to construction, landscaping, door to door sales, like all kinds. Valet driver. Someone gets things right, so it's not just sex work. But I wanted to create a work environment that where people are safe, and that's not a lot of people do that, right? But I want to be one of the good guys. But I also wanted to make really hot BDSM and queer porn. And so I'm basically working with people that I feel very confident not understand consent, but consent's important to them. Like everybody understands consent. Everybody says consent's very important to me, but I feel very confident that it actually is a high priority.
Right. Their
Meaning,
actions match their words.
Yeah, and just about I feel out their priorities in life. If their priority is one, we're not going to traumatize anyone, right? And
Mhm.
then two, we're going to try to make this a good day for everybody. And then way under that is like, I want to look good in this porn, or I'm a lot of consent violations come out of laziness in my experience. Like someone just doesn't know what to do next because
Okay.
they're tired and they're fatigued and they've been on set a long time. They got to shoot the next day and they shot the day before, and they're like thinking about other. And then someone said, "Hey, don't touch me here, or don't do this or do that anymore." And they really can't think of anything else to do, so they just do it anyway. And then
Mhm.
a good person will make a mistake and say, "Well, oh, I'm so sorry. What do we need to do? Cut. Hey, you okay, babe?" And check in. But the that'll defend it and be like, "What? You didn't tell me. Oh, you did. Well, you didn't. You weren't loud enough."
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
everybody makes a lot of people make mistakes, but I'm only working with people who you know,
Nice.
um, and that's what nice feelings is. It's why it's nice feelings because we want to hurt each other and be nice. You know what I mean? And I never got aftercare when I did all that submissive work. I didn't know it was an option. I didn't know what that was.
Oh, okay.
So I'm doing that on my sets, and I'm very motherly now that I'm on all this estrogen. So I'm cooking people food after we get blankets. There's time to talk about like, how are you, babe? So what's going on? You know what I mean? Like how?
Right.
Yeah, they can hang out with my cats. You know what I mean? It's not perfect. Nothing's perfect, but it's
Right.
nice. So I'm out of survival, so I can rebuild some kind of a retirement for myself. So if I do live long, that's what nice feelings is. The site, it's to rebuild something of value. In the meantime, I put content on my OnlyFans, of course, and my Pornhub and Clip Show many videos, all that kind of get the numbers up and the revenue back in. And then the in-person work I've been doing has been like so fulfilling and amazing.
Nice.
Loving that. So far, so good with that. I'm really screening people, so I'm not doing a ton of it. Like they have to jump through the hoops to I know that they're safe and I know they feel safe with me.
Mhm.
But once we get there, it's cool to be this good at something. Like I'm like a really good hooker. Like
That. I love that.
I was a guy that got hookers before I was in porn, so I know
Right.
it's
You
not
know
as
how they wanna be treated.
yeah, it's not sex that they want most of the time. It's they need to scratch an itch that isn't getting scratched, you know? And I know how to find that itch like really fast and like give them what they want and then not make it weird. And I know what not to say. I'm telling him, really fucking good hooker. So
That's awesome.
feels so fulfilling to just do that well, you know? Love it.
That's
But
great.
trying to build that up more and get more
That's
on board.
awesome.
That's little, you know what I mean?
And what is lucybucks.com? Tell me about Lucy Bucks.
Oh, that's the affiliate program for Nice Feelings. So,
Okay.
I don't know how the internet's gonna pan out, but with OnlyFans being oversaturated, right now, OnlyFans in our scape of porn, that's the main source of income for most sex workers, right? For most.
Yeah.
There's a lot of competing sites like LoyalFans. They're all waiting for OnlyFans, something bad to happen to them so they can step
Right.
into the one. They will too become oversaturated as soon as that happens, if that happens, right? So we're gonna have the same problems. With what I know from FSC, there's the fight with merchant processing. We're doing everything we can to win. I hope we do. We don't know, right? We know what's
Right.
going to happen with
Right.
that. I don't know, but I think there's a chance that if all that goes away, the OnlyFans fan platform thing, if it fades or gets oversaturated or collapses, just like every other form of sex work goes up and down,
Right.
um, a lot of our industry is going to be like, to make all my bills from that. And that was my retirement plan. And that was all the thing that made me feel valid as like a worker. And it's gone. It's just gone.
Mhm.
So I'm working with AJ at Elevated X and I'm building an affiliate program, doing all this kind of stuff. It's just there in case, break a glass, shit. I know how to do the pay site game. in the pay site game. It's a longer bet than OnlyFans and all that stuff, but if you have a site that you charge $20 a month for, and you can just get 1,000 people to join it, in the 7 billion people in the world, 1,000, right? That's not. You have I have 70,000 Twitter followers. 1,000. It's doable if you know I'm going to get like one or two a day over these years, and then it'll turn into 10 a day. And da, 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 da. That's 20 grand a month, right? That's a living. That's a. But
Absolutely.
you can't just get there with your social media. It doesn't. Twitter's everything's falling apart. OnlyFans, Instagram's just down all the time. Affiliate marketing is how you do pay sites. And when I say that to most sex workers or porners, they're like, affiliate? What's an affiliate? I don't, or they say, oh, okay, but I know it's going right over their head. They don't know what the fuck that means. And I'm not going to teach them all. I don't want to teach them all. They don't need to know. But I have a way to do it. So Lucy Bucks is that when, if needed, people can come to Lucy Bucks. People used to do OnlyFans and go to AJ to get the site, get everything set up for them. Go to Lucy Bucks to handle. We'll do the affiliate marketing. I'm working with
Gotcha.
a company, and they're handling the email blast, which is a whole complicated. You can't just send them through your Gmail like a bunch of.
Right. Oh, you're right.
It's a mass emails as an adult worker. Figured that out. So it's just there so people can come and do the next, whatever the next phase is. And then for me, it's obviously to make my own money, right? Because I
Yeah.
know it works.
Yeah.
I mean, when I owned Pervout, I was grossing 70K a month and keeping about 30K a month. And I wasn't working. Like I was literally just running payroll. And that happened through affiliate marketing and
That's
through mass
amazing.
emails and through having my sites. A lot of hard work, obviously,
Yeah.
like
Right.
80 hours a week for years. But
Mhm.
now that I did that, I can do it smoother and faster now because a lot of that was figuring out how to,
Right.
you know,
Hindsight's 2020 too. So
yeah,
you know what you did wrong, and now you just skip those steps.
skip those steps. And then we're learning to, obviously, times change, and people's reaction to join my pay site porn emails aren't the same as they were in 2023 or whatever, 2028. But there's gonna, well, I'm a, and I'm not graceful at all. I awkward, but I always get done and figure it out. So that's Lucy Bucks, nice feelings. That's what that is.
I love that. Today what I've learned about Lucy is that you are our survivor and you set your mind to something and nothing's going to stop you. And I love that.
Yep, stubborn. That's the thing.
But
I'm just
that's good.
stubborn. Yeah,
And and you're not going to let anything get in your way. You're like, "Okay, I've worked hard, got this. I used that to become happier and now I need to make more." So, you just figure it out. I like that.
yeah. Well, if it doesn't, if this whole like Lucy porn thing doesn't work, we're gonna find out in the next few months. I'm either gonna run out of money, or one of these things is gonna start making money. If I run out of money, okay, I'll move to a small town and I'll webcam, and I'll be happy. I know how to make friends now. I know I can do that. But this whole thing is me. I want to know, like, can I pull this off as a trans chick? Like,
You're
can
going
I
to pull it
really,
off.
really do it? Well, thanks. I hope so, but
You are. I can tell.
I'm going all out. I mean, morning till 11 at night. I'm typing, filming, flirting. I'm working, right? If it hits this, I'm like, well, we busted. We didn't work. I'll be able to survive in Bradenton, Florida, or somewhere like that. Like nothing against Bradenton. I lived there when I was very broke, so that's my go-to. I was like, I'll go back to Bradenton. I'll get like a little studio apartment for like whatever, and then I'll just webcam and I'll be
I
happy.
love your attitude because it's kind of like, well, I'm taking this path and if that door closes, well then I'm just going to take this path. And I
Yeah,
think that
it'll be all
that's
right.
what's going to make you successful.
Thanks. I hope so. I don't know. We're gonna find out.
I
So.
love it. I love it. Well, as we close out the show, I want to thank you again for sharing your story. I followed you for a long time and tell people where is the best place to find all things Lucy.
So if you go to lucyhart.com, and my heart is HART,
Okay.
You can get to everything. There's a link for fun links. That's my, I couldn't say porn here because Instagram will shut me down. So fun links is all my adult content. Whether you want to book me as a hooker, watch my free shit on Pornhub, my OnlyFans is free. All that shit is there. Or nice feelings. Go to my pay site, my passion project. Go there. That's all there. The about me, da da da. All my social links. I'm working in a mainstream movie. I'm going to be in a horror movie. Like one of the leads. Info on that will definitely be on lucyhart.com. So everything is in there. So
Awesome.
lucyhart.com.
Awesome. Well, we will also link that when this goes live. So
Cool.
thank you again. I can't wait to watch all your successes
Oh, hey.
coming soon for you.
Well, I feel positive. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for being on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Bye-bye.